Hello, America. Today's show topics include Obamacare to Trumpcare, problems continue with the VA, and profiles in history. So, sit back, buckle up, and hang on because we're just getting started.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
You know what time it is, so sit back and get ready for the Stafford Voice, your dose of conservative in a world of liberal.
3, 2, 1.
Hey, how you doing? I'm your host, Daniel Stafford, and we are conservative in a world of liberal. And tonight, we're talking about Obamacare to Trumpcare. Problems continue with the VA, and as you know, your favorite and mine, profiles in history. Now, as we get started, let me remind you that there are many ways to listen. So, set this channel as a favorite. Go ahead and hit subscribe, hit like, whatever you have to do so you don't get left behind. Because if for some strange, crazy reason you do miss the show, well, you'll be able to catch the replay, so just sit tight. There is no need to panic because, yes, I've got you. In the case you aren't already following on social media, you can find me on Twitter or Gab at Stafford Voice. Again, that's on Twitter or Gab at Stafford Voice. Or you can find me over on Grassfire, Facebook, Instagram, or any other social site of your choosing. Wherever, just search for the Stafford Voice, and we're probably going to be there. If you can't find us, well, hit us up and we will come and find you. Because after all, we want to be connected. I mean, that's why this show is so, how should I put it? Interactive. There's so many ways to interact with the show. You can tweet during the show. You can be in the YouTube chats. You can chat with people there. You can be over on the klrnradio.com/chat page. You can chat with people there. I see it all. Even if you're on Facebook, as long as you tag me or the show, I'll get it, and we'll see what's happening out there. All right, speaking of out there, if you're not subscribed to the Stafford Voice newsletter, head over to thestaffordvoice.com and just fill out a short little thing. Basically, all you have to do is just, you know how to subscribe to newsletters. What am I doing? I don't have to tell you how to do this stuff. Okay. Just sign up for the newsletter. This month's for January has just dropped. It dropped earlier this morning. Some good stuff in there. Wow. That's just, I can't believe we're almost we are over halfway through the first month of 2017. Hard to believe that this year is going as fast as it is. But nonetheless, let's jump into things here, shall we? The bottom line. Well, it's almost that time, Inauguration Day. The end of an era, or era, depending on who you talk to. And, well, some can't just leave well enough alone. No. They've got to do anything and everything to give themselves relevance. They want to be seen and heard. Awesome, I get it. You don't want Trump. But the fact still remains, Trump will be sworn in. And he deserves as much of a chance as was given to the outgoing president. You see, 8 years ago, many people were greatly concerned at the direction Obama was going to take the country. And rightly so, and to be honest, there is some apprehension with Trump. Don't get me wrong. I mean, look, I'm slightly apprehensive of things. But you know what? We survived the last 8 years, and we'll survive the next however many years. And let's not forget what the Declaration of Independence says, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So, pull up your big boy panties and let's get to work. That is the bottom line. Let's get into our first story, shall we? Our first topic of the evening is Obamacare to Trumpcare. Look, I stumbled across this earlier today, and quite frankly, it's much... Look, this is going to be one of those I told you so moments, but again, like I said earlier, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But we are going to hold his feet to the fire, okay? If he's veering anywhere from what he had said, or away from conservative principles, or even leftist Republican principles, you know, those quote-unquote New York values, well, here's the thing. One of the biggest things that he, Trump, ran on was repealing and replacing Obamacare. And people loved it. But now is the time to walk the walk. Okay? What I mean by that is, now that he's getting ready to be sworn in, some of the things that he is going to put into play are now going to come under pressure. Like the whole repeal and replace Obamacare thing. Well, I saw this over on redstate.com, where here's the headline. Health insurance, quote, for everybody, and the government will pay, says Republican Donald Trump. Again. And they had a picture of Donald Trump sitting there, and it's got this little quote bubble next to his head that says, the government's going to pay for it. And instantly I'm thinking, what the heck is going on here? Is this more of that fake news stuff? Well, I jumped into it. I read the article, and here's how it starts out. They start out by basically quoting Donald Trump from an interview that he did with the Washington Post. Washington Post reported on it, and Red State picked up on it also. And there's an excerpt here from the transcript of a CBS interview that I'm going to read to you. Kind of goes a little bit more in depth on this. And well, so let's go back to the excerpt from the Washington Post. They said, quote, we're going to have insurance for everybody. Now, this is coming from Trump, okay? It's coming from Trump. Quote, there was a philosophy in some circles that if you can't pay for it, you don't get it. That's not going to happen with us. That people covered under the law, quote, can accept to have great health care. It will be in a much simplified form, much less expensive, and much better. Again, the way Trump does this is he goes around in circles because he doesn't want to give his whole strategy up front, or he doesn't just want to come out and say it. I mean, for crying out loud, he's getting ready to be sworn in as the president. Who is he running against now? It's time to put all cards on the table. Take your hand and show your cards. So here's from this CBS transcript. And this transcript was going back to September 27th of 2015. So I think what they're trying to do with this article is, on Red State, is to highlight the fact that he's talked about this before. We knew this was coming. So Scott Pele, or Peely, he says, universal health care, Donald Trump. I'm going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not. Everybody's going to be taken care of much better than they're taken care of now. Scott, the uninsured person is going to be taken care of how? Donald Trump. They're going to be taken care of. I would make a deal with existing hospitals to take care of people, and you know what? If this is probably... Scott, make a deal? Who pays for it? Donald Trump. The government's going to pay for it. Okay, yes. He said it before. So how does all of this fit in? Let's go back and look at what was said in the Washington Post interview. They even highlight the fact that he has declined to reveal specifics. You know, that whole Pelosi tactic of pass it to find out what's in it. Anyway, said that they've been talking in the Washington Post article. They said that Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan and other Republicans have been talking lately about providing quote-unquote universal access to health insurance instead of universal insurance coverage. Trump warned Republicans that if the party splinters or slow his agenda, he is ready to use the power of the presidency and Twitter to usher his legislation to passage. Now, you guys know that Trump, he has a love affair with Twitter. He is in love with Twitter, and that's okay. But he's also said that he's not going to adopt the at POTUS deal. He's not going to do that. He's going to stick with his for the time being. And then he goes on to say, quote, the Congress can't get cold feet because the people will not let that happen. And that's through the power of Twitter. He wants to take things to the masses, and I get it. It's okay. It's the whole reason why, the whole strategy that he has with the press corps, basically locking the doors on them and putting them out there in the elements. That there are a lot of other people that should have the opportunity to know what's happening and to report on things. And I think that's kind of where he's going with this. He's basically saying, look, guys, if you don't want to if you don't want to push things through, then you're going to start feeling the pressure from your constituents. And great. I mean, that's, we as constituents, you and I, are the ones that should be voicing our opinions and telling our elected officials what we want and what we don't want. That's how this whole thing works. That's why we have local representatives who then go back to Washington and say, here's how this is what my constituents want. This is what they need. Let's do this. Well, so Trump went on to say, it's very much formulated down to the final strokes. We haven't put it in quite yet, but we're going to be doing it soon. He noted that he's waiting for his nominee for Secretary of Health and Human Services, Representative Tom Prince of Georgia, to be confirmed. So if we were to confirm this guy right here, right now, we're going to get more details? Doubtful. Well, Here in the article, it also says, so far Republicans have taken the first steps toward repealing the law through budget reconciliation. Let's... I tell you what, we're going to come back to that. A process by which only a simple majority is needed in the Senate. The process would enable them to dismantle aspects of the law that involve federal spending. Okay. Slow the roll. Let's go back to the whole budget reconciliation thing. And John in YouTube chat says local representatives aren't very local after being exposed to Potomac fever. You are exactly correct. Okay. Let's stop the bus real quick and remember just for a second this whole reconciliation thing. You remember when Obamacare was shoved up our orifices? It was shoved down our throats. It was shoved up our backsides. Anywhere our body had an orifice, they shoved it. That's how they passed Obamacare. So this, I guess Trump is ready to, well, if they can do it, so can we. Yeah, this is the real difference in how Democrats want to govern versus how honest and true conservatives would govern. And this should be a slight window into how he's going to operate. It's his way or the highway. And yes, John, we had to pass Obamacare to find out what was in it. And likely that's what we're going to see with Trumpcare. Trumpcare is going to be more of the same bureaucratic crap that was forced up our keister with Obamacare. He just said earlier that where was it? That they've declined to reveal specifics. And that's the way Trump operates. He talks around circles and goes around so many different ways that you basically forget what the hell was being talked about. But anyway, I digress. The difference between honest and true conservatives and how they would govern versus Democrat style is exactly what John says in the chat, that it's the rule with dissent of the people. Conservatives would rather go to the people and say, okay, let's talk about this, shall we? Okay, here's everything that we've got. Let's talk about it. Okay, now that we've talked, let's figure out a plan. Let's put it into practice, and let's really dial this in. Whereas Democrats said, screw you. I don't care who you are or what you've got to say. I'm so much smarter than you because I'm elected, and I'm in Washington. You mean nothing. Complete opposite ends of the spectrum. John says in the chat, Trump NATO is a tornado of Trump's fact promises. I'll tell you what. I've said this many times. No matter who was going to be elected, we were going to hold their feet to the fire. And that's what we're doing. We're holding his feet to the fire, and we're presenting the things that we find out and how they might affect us. Because that's what this is all about. This is all about how what Washington does affects you and I. Otherwise, you can put anything you want on paper. But when it starts affecting real people, that's where I start having a problem. You know, it's got to be a win-win. You can't be a win-lose or a lose-win. That's not how things should work. So, let's see. Trump was in reference to his tweeting about things. He said, "I think we will get approval. I won't tell you how, but we'll get approval." Set all that aside. Let's try and figure out what is Trumpcare going to look like. Given what we know, we're going to have insurance for everybody. Okay, that's the same thing that Obamacare was supposed to do. There was a philosophy in some circles that if you can't pay for it, you don't get it. That's not going to happen with us. Okay, well, that's basically what you just said, that we're going to have insurance for everybody. That's what Obamacare did. If you can't afford it, you can have it anyway. Let's see. People covered under the law can expect to have great health care. It will be in a much simplified form, much less expensive, and much better. Okay, where did it go? Anyway, I can't find it. So, at some point in all of this, he talks about how he's going to go after prescription drug companies. He's going to have deals with them. He's going to have deals with hospitals. He's going to say these deals are going to be so great. Hospitals are going to they're going to make deals, and it's going to be deal heaven. I don't think that's really how all of this works. Look, you know it and I know it, that the government should not be in the business of telling you what you need and what you don't need. If I don't want to go out and buy health insurance, that's on me. If I can't afford it because the costs are too damn high, then what am I supposed to do? Oh, I'm supposed to go and get this beautiful Trumpcare or Obamacare? And magically money is going to fall off of trees and unicorns are going to blow coins out of their butts? And that's how it all gets paid for? No. Somebody has to pay for it. And look, I'm going to be completely honest, as you would expect me to do. I'm going to be completely honest. My wife has gone round and round with her sister, round and round in circles with her sister about Obamacare. Many times her sister has argued, saying, because our health insurance has gone up, it's not because of Obamacare. Bull. When you get a letter from an insurance company that says, we have to double your rate because of the Affordable Care Act. Oh, well, it's the Affordable Care Act. That's different than Obamacare. Oh, my God. Hello, McFly. Anyway. Costs for healthcare doubled. So what happened to hers? Oh, her healthcare went down? Oh, well, that's because I'm paying for part of it. You're paying for part of it. In the end, look, if I go out and buy a car, I'm not going to send you the bill. That's essentially the same thing. It's like all of these other stories about food stamps. That Amazon is going to start accepting food stamps for food. Okay? For just a second, wrap your mind around that. If you need help, go to the church. Go to your neighbor. Don't go to the government and say, I'm too stupid to get my own stuff. I get it. There's a program there to help people. But if you're using it as a way to meet your means, I saw an article earlier where this lady, she's got all these different programs laid out in front of her, and she brings in roughly $150,000 a year. Think about that. $150,000 a year in government assistance. I don't even know where to begin with that. But in the end, when you say stuff like this, when you say, we're going to have, where was it? We're going to have insurance for everybody. There was a philosophy in some circles that if you can't pay for it, you don't get it. That's not going to happen with us. Obamacare was sold for the sole idea that everyone was going to have health insurance. If you refused, you were going to get a penalty. You were going to have to pay more in taxes. Trump just said in his own words, we're going to have, let me paraphrase what he said. We're going to take Obamacare and we're going to make it great again. It's going to be easier. It's going to be cheaper, but it's going to be better. How in the hell is it going to be cheaper? Oh, well, we're going to massively decrease the amount of your deductible. Okay, well, if I have to go to the hospital, you know what happens? The cost is astronomical. Yeah, great. I paid $10 to go visit the doctor instead of $50. But now my cost, if I wind up going through some sort of surgery or, heaven forbid, some other accident or emergency, my costs will almost double or triple under ignoramus thoughts like this. It's going to be Obamacare on steroids. Now, if I'm wrong, and Trumpcare just magically erases a lot of this stuff, then kudos. But what I'm seeing right here with this Washington Post article, thanks but no thanks. How are we on time? Okay. I tell you what. We can talk round and round about that, but we're going to leave that where it's at. And in the coming days and weeks, when more of his stuff gets rolled out, we will continue to take a look at it and hold his feet to the fire. That's what we're doing. It's what we told you we were going to do. We have that right to do so. And who cares if it upsets him? He made a lot of promises. He made promises great again, people. Okay, where are we at? You know what? Let's take a break. Let's take a break, and then when we come back, we will talk about how problems continue with the VA. We'll be right back.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Nothing will protect you quite like your sidearm, so why not give it the protection it deserves? Something as strong as the Second Amendment and stands the test of time, and better yet, made in the USA. A Rebel Road Tactical Custom Kydex holster is that and more. Call now and place your order with Rebel Road Tactical at 682-217-4579. Again, 682-217-4579, or online at rebelroadtactical.com.
Conservative in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
All right, we're back, and obviously I am off my game. Okay. Sorry. This is Daniel Stafford, host of the Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal, and I tell you what, there continues to be problems with the VA. You know that, I know that. We've reported on it We've reported on this so many times, it's almost getting to be a staple for the show, for the last half of the show. And that's fine, because until something gets done, we're not gonna ease up on it. And I see Army John says on Twitter. I'm sorry, John. On Twitter, he's known as @ArmyJohn. In the chat rooms, it's Jonathan. So most of the time I refer to him as Army John. The guy's always got my six. He says that VA is a full dress rehearsal of Obamacare. VA doesn't work. Is it any surprise Obamacare is a miserable failure as well? I'm just going to leave that at that, because I couldn't agree with him anymore. I completely agree 100%. Okay, problems continue with the VA. If you remember back a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago, there were whistleblowers that talked about these ridiculously long waits for appointments for veterans. It blew up into this big, huge scandal. At the center of it was the Phoenix VA hospital. At the very core of it. Well, all this time later, you would have thought they figured something out. You would have thought they were able to put their heads together and come up with a plan to make things better. Guess what? You'd be wrong. As Trump would say, wrong. Okay? Bigly wrong. On Monday, I believe last week, and I don't know how we didn't see this one, but there was a watchdog group that, sorry, I'm reading the chat. John says there's a proportional relationship to the wait time at the VA and your time in service. So the longer you're in, the longer you wait? Well, that's not fair. So this watchdog group reported on this. They went in and looked at the Phoenix VA. And what they found was nothing really changed. Says, let's see, Special Counsel Carolyn Lerner, whose office represents whistleblowers and investigates their claims, wrote in a letter to President Obama that 2 independent reviews have confirmed many allegations brought by a doctor at the Phoenix facility. One review by the Inspector General for the Department of Veterans Affairs said a veteran with heart trouble died last year while waiting for cardiology tests that could have saved him. Investigators also found that on a given day, 1,100 veterans in Phoenix have a longer than 30-day wait to see a doctor. And during the period reviewed by investigators, 215 veterans died while waiting to see a specialist. Let me see. John says, the straw that broke my back was the story of the vet left for dead in the shower for 9 hours. We covered that one, and I get really emotional when we start discussing the treatment of our veterans. And look, the veteran that was left in that shower, that was just a bunch of finger pointing. Well, I thought it was his job. Oh, I thought it was their job. Well, we thought it was so-and-so's job. It's everyone's job. Bottom line, if you see something that needs to be done, do it. It's common decency. Let's continue, shall we? So here is what these investigators found, okay? Now, obviously, a VA spokesperson did not respond to requests for comment. John says every VA clerk should be required to complete IET and BCT, learn the core of soldier care, then they can go about their profession in the VA. I actually like that idea. Okay, so here's some of the things that these investigators found. A veteran who died of cardiovascular disease did not receive a cardiology exam his VA physician ordered. The agency determined that he had received the exam when he should have. Further testing and interventions could have Oh, sorry. Let me reread that because I think I missed something. The agency determined that had he received the exam when he should have, further testing and interventions could have prevented his death. During a week in October of 2015, nearly 3,900 medical appointments in Phoenix were canceled. Of those, 59 should have been rescheduled and were not. Of those 59 patients, 12 may have experienced harm that could have been prevented without the delay in care. On an average day, the Phoenix VA has 1,100 patients waiting longer than 30 days for appointments. Patients needing to see a psychotherapist wait an average of 75 days. 75 days to wait to see a psychotherapist. Sorry, but when those demons are battling inside your head, and I don't experience anything close to what some of these guys experience and are fighting in their head, but even the bouts of depression that I've gone through, no flipping way would I ever want to wait 75 days, because after 75 days, trust me, if depression would have lasted 75 days, I would have been committed into a mental institution. There's no way I could have handled that. These guys don't have time to wait 75 days to go see a psychotherapist. They have issues that they need help sorting out. Otherwise, you're going to put them on hold when you call the VA suicide hotline that we've reported on before, and the phone calls went unanswered. Let's continue, shall we? Out of a sample of 215 veterans with 295 consults who died while waiting for care, 62 of their consults, 21%, were delayed. The delayed consults did not contribute to their deaths the Inspector General's office concluded. Oh, so more of the he said, she said stuff. John brings up a great point. Let's put this into context. 1,100 vets waiting for more than 30 days is half of a brigade of soldiers. And no, they wouldn't. The Army would never let that happen. That's not being combat ready. I don't care who you are, that's not combat ready. Spin it however you want. It would never work. Okay, in one case, a veteran, quote, waited in excess of 300 days for vascular care, following a consult request from another doctor. Out of a sample of 30 inappropriately canceled chiropractic consults, 28 veterans did not receive the appointment they requested. It's unbelievable. They go to let me see. Anne says that I've talked a few friends through those demons. 75 days is nuts, but the soldiers are sane. Listen, and this is the thing. These demons in their heads, are not who these people are. They've seen things. Their bodies have gone through things that only Hollywood can try and paint a picture. And even then it would be a disaster. These guys have seen and experienced things, and gals, that no one should ever have to go through. It is extremely traumatic. Vietnam was how long ago? And I've got a friend who is a Vietnam veteran who fought many, many years, and it was only up until the last couple of years did he actually get answers and get a response from the government saying, okay, yes, you have problems and they relate to your service in Vietnam. And it was just, there was one major incident that traumatized him for the rest of his life. But the guy is a nice guy. He's genuine. And let me echo something else that Ann just said in the chat. She says the VA process is nuts, not the soldiers. I completely agree. Okay, so here they said the reviews released Monday did not find intentional mistakes, but rather bureaucratic confusion. Quote, staff were generally unclear about specific consult management procedures, and services varied in their procedures and consult management responsibilities. And that's according to the Inspector General's office. I really hope that the Trump administration does something to start fixing the VA. Just at least put things get a process going so we can right all of these wrongs. I mean, to make somebody wait 75 days to talk to somebody, I tell you what, if you're a soldier out there and you need somebody to talk to, look me up. Look up Army John. Look up Ann. We will talk to you. I'm not going to tell you how to act or how to respond, or I'm not going to do any of that. I will listen. Because a lot of these guys just need somebody to talk to. They need somebody to listen. And I will. Wherever you're at, whatever time it is, look me up. I'm not going to put you on hold. I'll put all my stuff on hold for you. If you need somebody to talk to. John says, bottom line, Congress and President have promised veterans the best of care while gutting the funding. VA has no money, and the money it does have is wasted in corruption. And that is completely 100% true. I actually was going... I was tossed up between covering this one, covering this report, or covering the exactly it. I was going to cover the story about them continuing to give out bonuses. After all of this, we still continue to give bonuses and waste money when we've got people out there needing real help. It is a corrupt system, and something needs to be done about it. Something really needs to be done about it. And it needs to be done now. Hopefully the Trump administration actually does something for this to start righting the wrongs. Okay, we're going to take our last and final break of the day. And when we come back, we're going to have our profiles in history. I really enjoyed looking this guy up. The guy was one of those in the shadows guys. But anyway, I tell you, you'll learn all about him when we come back. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Conservative in a world of liberal.
The Stafford Voice.
All right, we are back. And it is time for your favorite segment and mine, Profiles in History. Profiles in History. Mark Twain said of him that his, quote, life work was so inconspicuous that his name would be wholly forgotten but for one thing. He signed the Declaration of Independence. Francis Lightfoot Lee was born on October 14th, 1734, at Stratford in Westmoreland County, Virginia. He was the fourth oldest of 6 brothers, but unlike his older brothers, he was not educated abroad. Instead, he was taught by tutors at the family estate. A few years after his father passed away in 1750, he would end up in the Virginia House of Burgesses. Now, it's said that Lee never met a protest against England's rule that he didn't like, starting with the protest against the Stamp Act of 1766. When in opposition of it, he signed the Westmoreland Resolves. At the age of 38, he married Rebecca Taylor, his second cousin once removed. In 1774, Francis was very active in fighting for the first Virginia Convention. His political activism earned him the title of delegate to the Second Continental Congress, along with his brother Richard Henry Lee. It was during this time that Lord Dunmore, the royal governor of Virginia, offered slaves their freedom if they fought for England. This pushed him over the edge, and he determined that full independence from Britain was America's only option. Unlike his brother, he wasn't a good speaker. Instead, Lee's strengths were in the committees, one of which, the Committee of the Whole, he served as the chairman of until 1779, and he wasn't afraid to oppose his more outspoken brother, Benjamin Rush said, quote, he was brother to Richard Henry Lee, but possessed, I thought, a more acute and correct mind. We know his brother, Richard Henry Lee, and his proposed resolution for independence. However, what many people don't know is that he wasn't there when it was being voted on in July 1776. Francis, however, was, and voted in favor for independence on July 2nd and approved the Declaration of Independence 2 days later, on July 4th. On August 2nd, he put his signature to that very document. 2 years later, in 1778, Lee found himself on the committee that drafted the Articles of Confederation, of which he also put his name to. He had had enough of national politics by now and turned his efforts to serving a few years in Virginia's state house and senate. By the time the war was over and after he left the state senate, he spent out the rest of his life as a plantation owner, tinkering with various agricultural experiments during his retirement. Sadly, during the cold winter of 1796, he and his wife, Rebecca, fell ill and developed pleurisy, an extremely painful inflammation of the lungs. January 7th, 1797 marked the death of Rebecca. 4 days later, at the age of 62, Francis Lightfoot Lee breathed his last and painful breath. And that is this week's Profiles in History. That guy... Look, it just goes to show that even when you're living in the shadows, you can still get stuff done. You don't always have to be the guy that's out there doing all the dirty work. I mean, you can still be behind the scenes, flipping a bunch of switches, punching a bunch of buttons to make things happen. It's just extremely interesting to look at these guys and look at their lives and what they were able to accomplish. I mean, people today, I find it hard to believe that people today would be able to do the amount of work that they did and got done back then. It's just fascinating. Anyway, that beep tells us that's all the time we have for this week. I know, I'm sorry. God willing, the Stafford Voice will be back next week. You can follow me on Twitter or Gab at Stafford Voice. You can look me up on Grassfire, Facebook, Instagram. All you got to do is just search for the Stafford Voice. You'll find me. Also, if you feel like you would rather email any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to. You can do so to thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Again, email address is thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. I want to thank you so much for your time, and until next week, thanks, and God bless.